This Wednesday, the 21st, is Rudi Samadhi. And I know in my life, it's a very sacred day. My teacher truly took his Samadhi and kind of a miraculous day. I mean, to be with him in that airplane, to live and to understand profoundly that the gift of life was given to me. I can never take it for granted. I have to use it in every way I can find to serve a higher energy, to serve God, to serve people who want to have a spiritual life. I mean, it's kind of a miraculous day. It's a day of rebirth, a day of passing on lineage, of rebirth, and has always been a sacred day for me. And every time I look in the mirror, I see the miracle of Stuart, that I'm alive. I survived something that nobody really survives. And there had to be a purpose for that, and it took years to discover profoundly what the purpose was, and that is simply to be in service of God, service of human beings, any way I can. I've learned this exercise, this meditation. I know that if people really do it, it works to change their lives. You know, I've done a lot of other kind of social stuff at foundations and, human trafficking and all kinds of stuff. And finally took a deep breath and said, I have to do what works for me. I have to do what really has transformed my life. And I see it will transform the lives of people that really do it. It will get them in contact with higher energy in the universe. And I couldn't think of a better thing to serve in my life. It's not serving masses of people. It's serving those who truly can use this meditation as a way to get their spiritual enlightenment. So Wednesday is a very sacred day. I'll have a class here. There's going to be 3 or 4 people that have arrived by then for the retreat. And it'll be in the afternoon. And there'll be a special class in the evening too. At 7:00 and 7:30 in the evening. The class at maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon won't be online. It'll just be with people that are here who have come a little bit earlier. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? Somebody's got to have a question. Does anybody have a question?
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes.
Maybe I'm not sure this is. You could answer this good, but maybe you could talk about how Rudi taught. I mean, I've read his books and so on, but doesn't really talk about how he interacted with the students in class and so on. Anything about that?
It was really, I mean, look, circumstances has forced me to do this online. People are here. You're in Germany, Paul. People are in Israel. People are in Brazil here. People are all over the United States. And Rudi was always available. Understand? And if you really were committed to learn from him, a lot of people used to go there because it basically just kept them alive. But if you were really committed to learn from him, he was uber available. I could, my commitment was that where I could go into his store any time of the day. And, if he was busy, I would wait, and then we would always find time to do some deep spiritual practice. He was the servant of his students. He was the servant of God. And I've said it many times. He told me this. He said, Stuart, he said, a guru is not God. A guru is the servant of his students or her students and the servant of God. And that's how he lived his life. It was a very charismatic life and a very powerful life. I mean, he ran a business. He lived in the world. He loved Chinese food. He loved television, Rudi. Couldn't walk into a room without turning a television set on. But at all the time, I remember how many meditations I had with him while he was watching the Dick Van Dyke show. I became an expert at Dick Van Dyke, not through what I saw, but what I heard. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful because this was a living presence in the world. It wasn't some guru you see every 3 months and you kiss his foot and you say, thank you, Baba. He was a presence. He was a very big presence in the life of anybody who allowed him to be in their life. And I knew when I met him, I had to allow this person to be in my life. I had no choice. I had been through hell in my early years, wound up in a prison in Spain, in my early years. And only for a month. I wasn't there very long, but it really had reached the bottom. And I knew when I met him 3 weeks after I got out of that place, I had found a person who could help me in my life, and he was available. And I had never known a teacher in my life who was available. He was available. And I said, Stuart, you have to take advantage of this. Where are you going to find another person like this? I've lived my life that way. I always had a gallery. People would come in, they'd come during the day. They'd come to my loft. They would come. We'd have dinners together, parties, and all kinds of stuff. I used to have concerts in my loft once a month where all my students would come and people would entertain. Remember, Chris, we would do that. Every month we would have a concert. I tried to make myself available. And for Rudi, it was a lot easier. He was a much more gregarious kind of person. I was kind of an introverted person. And in order to do it, I really had to get past myself. I would sit in my gallery and we would be doing meditation and healings and all kinds of stuff would go on. So a customer would come in and I would have to try to sell something to pay for my life. It was living, and I love that about Rudi. He was completely and totally alive in the moment. And I had never met a teacher. I'd been swamis and this one and all kinds of teachers, and none of them were ever available. You would see them once a week or once a month. That's how we interacted. Had classes, when I first started with him, I think they were 4 or 5 days a week. And then as it grew and he made, students of his teachers, there were classes going on every day. And every time he made a teacher, his heart would be this big. It would just open like a great sun. He was so grateful to be able to pass this work on to somebody else. That's how I knew Rudi. And even now, I'm going to have to go find a house or someplace big enough to where I can start, having people, not live permanently, but come for a week 10 days, get training, you know, and I can do that kind of work, which I really in myself need to do. It only makes me grow, and it helps people to grow who are truly, sincerely interested in a spiritual life and have made this kind of meditation that I teach a priority in their life. And there are no rules and regulations, and I don't crack a whip. And yes, if somebody doesn't show up here for a month or two, you know, I'll take their name off the list. Because I'm also tired of it, you know, because it's very hard to do this. And if people, they come, they don't come, I don't need them, you know, as students. I need people that really want to make a commitment to growing spiritually, to using this amazing work that we do here to develop their spiritual life. But that was Rudi. That person was completely and totally alive in the world. Everything was sacred. A bar of chocolate was sacred. An M&M was sacred. A flower, you know, hugging somebody was sacred. Everything to him was sacred. And also, he didn't put up with a lot of bullshit from people. He worked too hard to have to deal and put up with people's bullshit. I mean, he had patience for anyone who was willing to do the work. If he had patience for me, you can have patience for anybody willing to do the work to get past themselves and to use what he was teaching to grow spiritually. Once told me, I'll never take another student like you. I was walking down the street with him, you know, somewhere in the East Village, and it was, I'll never take another student like you. Like that terrible, Rudi? I said, well, I told him, oh, thank God I made the cut. But he also told his mother, and he didn't tell me this, his mother told me this, that the day we met, he told his mother, and she told me this once when I was store sitting with her and helping him, you know, when he had to go out of town, he had to go to India for business. And she told me, she said, I shouldn't tell you this, Stuart, but the day Rudi and you met, he came to me and he said, I think I have found somebody I can pass my teachings. So the day we met, and when I asked him about that, he said, Stuart, I saw you looking in the window of my store. It was like seeing my son lost in the universe. And I just pulled you right in the door. This was Rudi. And he also told me, I'll never take another student like you. It was really a ride, you know, it was a roller coaster ride. But it was a roller coaster ride, not because of him, but because of what I had to go through in myself to get to a place where I truly arrived at that place where the spiritual life is more important than anything in the world. And at the same time, he had to run a business. I had to run a business. I had to go to India 4 times a year. You know, my God, I finally got fed up with it. I couldn't do it anymore. It was killing me. And I had a partner in India. I said, I can't come here anymore. I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't care what happens financially to me. Can't do this anymore. So he said, oh, you come, you stay in the Taj, you know, and I'll bring you art and we'll buy. They said, no, I can't. I can't do this. I have to do it differently. And what I loved about Rudi, it wasn't just I'm a guru and you worship me. He worked so freaking hard at his business, at his life, at his relationships, at everything that went on in his life he used to work at. and try to bring the highest element of himself to it. And I had never seen that before. I always think people would substitute this, I'm a Swami and worship me. You know, a lot of people that, you know, supposedly do Rudi's work, they're Swamis and you have to worship them, you know? And he never wanted that. He said, Stuart, I had to become a Swami because it was the only way I could get the teachings in India. He said, in America, it's ridiculous to be called a Swami. You know, he told me this. So he was real on so many levels, so many levels. And he always said, I do this work out of gratitude to my teachers. Swami Nityananda for the Chankracharya, you know, the gratitude to my teachers. That's why I do this work, to say thank you. And I'm the same way. I do this, I mean, out of gratitude to Rudi, to Kala Rinpoche, to, you know, teachers, even, Ramana Maharshi and Ramakrishna, these teachers that aren't even on the earth, who helped me so much in my life. And I love this work. I love it because it's real. It's not play acting, it being spiritual. Life becomes sacred. Life becomes sacred. Everything in life is one's teacher. It's sacred. It's there to guide one deeper into themselves and to get closer to God. But then you have to do the work. And you can't bullshit around and you got to take the commit, make the commitment to doing it. I remember, I got into the Asian art business because his mother called me up one day. I've told this story before. His mother called me up one day and said, how would you like to buy 2 truckloads of art from me? And I said to her, Ray, do you know where I live? I live in the middle of Baptist America. You know, this is North Texas here is where I live. I said, I mean, 90% of the people are rednecks here, you know? She said, oh, think about it, you know? And I thought about it for 5 minutes and I called her back and I said, Ray, I'll do it. I'll come to New York in a few weeks and we'll do this, you know? And I'll never forget how I wound up in the Asian art business. I went to her gallery and Rudi had already passed on and she was running the gallery. And we spent, I would say, 5, 6 hours going from object to object. Everything was too expensive. You know, all she did was fight with me and argue with me. And I finally walked out of there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, well, the hell with this. I can't get to first base with her. So in a meditation class I taught at a friend of mine's apartment in Manhattan, you know, and I taught this class. And in the middle of the class, Rudi came to me and he said, buy my mother a bottle of scotch. But he told me, buy my mother a bottle of scotch. So the next day I went to a liquor store. I bought some Chivas Regal. I know she liked Chivas Regal. And I went down to her gallery. I gave her the bottle of scotch. She lit up like a light bulb. Every price went down 50%. We did this enormous amount of business. I think I spent $175,000 that day. I mean, it was unbelievable. Filled up 2 truckloads of art. I mean, 100 then was probably almost $2 million when you think of the difference in money today with her today, that day. and filled up 2 truckloads of art, brought it to Denton, Texas, and set up a gallery. And the miracle was I even found clients. I couldn't believe I actually found clients there. It was unbelievable. Anyway, she used to call me about once a week, twice a week. I need money, I need money, I need money, I need money. Send me money. I said, Ray, okay. Anyway, I'm sitting in meditation class and I hear this voice boom out of the cosmos. Rudi, send my mother money. Send my mother money. And it made me work so freaking hard that I began to run a relatively successful business selling Buddhist art, to, you know, very right-wing type of people down there, And then I finally put it all away and I moved back to New York. And when I came back to New York, I had so much art that it looked like I'd been in business there for 25 years. The gallery looked like it'd been running there for 25 years. I had so much stuff. And that's why I got it, and why Rudi wanted me to have it, so I could set up a situation in New York. And then it became a really successful business, very successful business. But that was Rudi, it wasn't just spirit. It had to be real in the world. It had to be transformed the spiritual into something sacred in life. And I always love that because we're born here and we take life for granted. And life itself is very sacred. Every moment of life is sacred. Every breath we take. Our jobs, the money we make, our relationships, our families, it's all sacred. It's all there to teach us how to become more human. Anyway, I had spent 9 years of my life looking for teachers when I was younger. I never found anything like what Rudi taught. And I was so grateful to have really, God put somebody like that in my life. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I hope this is clear to all of you, because I don't know how to make it clearer. As clear as I can get. Okay, there'll be a special class on Wednesday evening. If any of you who live, I know it's hard, it's 2:00 in the morning in Israel, and, but if you want to come 1:00 in the morning, just let me know. I'll put your name on the list for that, class. And thank you. God bless you all. And the 21st is also an important day because this has got to be the hardest month of the year for me. Between Rudi's birthday and Rudi's Samadhi, it's always just go hide somewhere and I can't, which is good. So thank you. God bless you all. And I'm looking forward to seeing, there will be a class Tuesday. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stuart.
You, Stuart.
so much.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. Bye.